In this video, I'll be going over what Smith & Wesson did to repair my Bodyguard 2.0. I'll link my first video on this gun down below, but I have about a 12 or 13 minute long video where I discuss all of the issues with my gun. Now, I received the gun in the mail back today from Smith & Wesson. Going into some of the details, I shipped the gun to them probably about 3 weeks ago. It was the middle of October. I got into a major car accident right after I uploaded the last Bodyguard video, so it took a little while for me to recuperate and then actually send this gun off. I mailed it to them. The first odd thing I'll say is that this gun is made in Tennessee. The gun didn't go back to Tennessee to get fixed. It went to Massachusetts. That was the first kind of oddball thing, but okay, I know that they still, maintain their facility up there for repair work, so okay, there's that. Well, I get the gun back in the mail today after having a kind of lengthy process of dealing with their customer service. When I mailed the gun off, before I could even get a return address label from them, I think I spoke with 4 different people. And it was kind of a process to get a return address label for FedEx to pick up the gun. When I sent my 43C off to them earlier this year, it was as simple as emailing with the issues I had, and then I had a return address label in 30 minutes. This was like a 4 or 5 day process just to get the label. So kind of annoying, but it is what it is. They did mention that they had new hires in the new facility, and they gave me excuses that, while they may be valid, there's still excuses as to why it took 4 days for me to get a FedEx return address label that I had to print out and take to their shop, or to the FedEx store. So before I go into what they did on the gun, I'm actually going to show this form here. And this is the Smith & Wesson repair order completion form. And I've blurred out some of my information here, but I wanted to kind of go over some of the stuff here. The issues that I told them about, and these are all issues I ran into, was that my rear sight was seized in the dovetail, so I couldn't drift it to zero it, but also I couldn't remove the slide cover plate that holds the striker in. I had a MIM ledge on the frame part of the feed ramp that was impeding reliable function. And then my 12-round magazine could only hold 11 rounds. No matter how much force I put into it with a mag loader, I couldn't fit more than 11 rounds in here. So what did they mention on the return completion form here? Fails to feed, the MIM ledge on the frame part, so simplistic, but that is what it was. Rear sight seized in the incomplete sentence, but the rear sight was seized. They don't list anything about the magazine here. So what did they do for the performed services here? They evaluated and repaired the gun. Okay, what did they swap? They didn't tell me. It passed range testing, cool, and adjust sights, cool. So I don't have it out here in the garage with me, but I have a very similar form for when my 43C came back, and they actually listed all the parts that they swapped on the gun. Now, part of why I don't think they mentioned any part swaps is because they didn't actually swap anything on this gun as far as I can tell. They modified the gun, but they didn't swap any parts, right? So let's go over how the gun came back to me. So it arrived today via FedEx. Obviously, I have the gun here. They packaged it totally fine, so no complaints there. If you ever send a gun to Smith & Wesson, which admittedly with how their quality control is, you might have to, when you get it back, they actually send it in a nondescript FedEx box, and then inside that box is a retail box. It doesn't have any sort of packaging on it, so it's the same as their blue boxes that they ship the guns in, just not blue and not covered in Smith & Wesson stuff. So I have the gun here. I'm going to pull it off camera to take it apart. I know YouTube gets a little wonky about taking guns apart on camera. We're going to take it apart here so I can go over what they've done. So for the slide, as far as I can tell, it's still my original rear sight. There's a little bit of the yellowing from where we used our punch to try to shift it. There is now a little bit more air gap. You actually see through there, which is good. I think that the dovetail was tight on this, or the rear sight was oversized, but I don't recall having a gap this big when I had the gun before. So I haven't tried to shift the sight. I'm gonna monkey with it if I need to, if the gun still isn't shooting to point of aim, but that appears to be done. For the recoil assembly, it's the same. For the slide, everything appears to be intact. There's a W up here. I don't know if that was there before. Truth be told, I probably should have checked, but maybe I can roll back my footage and take a look at that, but that's there. The barrel, they did actually polish it, and again, the lighting's a little weird here. They did polish part of the feed ramp here, which is good. That's going to help out with feeding. However, all the issues were at the frame section, so I'm going to put our barrel back in the slide. People commented in the previous video that it was kind of hard sometimes to reassemble the gun. My gun wasn't ever difficult to put back together, but I have noticed that the recoil assembly does protrude a little bit past the end of the slide here. It's not as visible here when the gun's apart. When you put it back together, it kind of sits like this, like that. And I actually had to go and look back at my photos for the article I wrote on the gun to take a look at that. So the frame here. Did they get rid of the MIMD piece? Now, this is a point of contention for a lot of people because a lot of folks were saying, well, that's not an issue, just deal with it. And I'm thinking, well, I saw it impeding reliable function on the gun, and the big tell for me is not just like, okay, I can see it's going to cause issues. It's that I saw guns that left the factory that didn't have that, right? Did they modify them at some point, or was it just like, oops, we forgot to cut that off? Well, my gun has a highly polished feed ramp with no MIM ledge on there. I can actually see, and this is, you know, I can't ask for everything on a $400 gun, right? I can see where they actually left a little bit of the feed ramp cut there, but nothing that should impede reliable function here. So they did cut it down. They also polished the feed ramp quite a bit. Now, this gun arrived back at my house 2 or 3 hours ago, so I haven't been able to shoot it yet. So I'll have some shooting footage of it next week, but that alleviated the primary issue with reliability for the gun, right? The fact that the feed ramp is now, you know, without a big ledge in there that's going to catch on hollow points, right? That's a big deal. So I'm going to put the gun back together here. And again, I'm not showing it on camera just because YouTube isn't super happy about that. But as you can see, the gun didn't have any issues going back together. You can see that the end of the recoil assembly is still poking out a little bit past there. Now, the last concern that wasn't on our work order, repair order, completion form, my 12-round magazine. And this is the same magazine that I sent in. I can tell because it's got the scratch marks from me putting it in the gun. Can I fit 12 rounds in here? No, I can't. I don't think they did anything with the magazine. They tested reliable function in the gun, but that does not mean that they put 12 rounds in this magazine. I have 11 rounds in here right now. I can try to push, and there's a little bit of give, but even with my Maglula loader, if I have it compressed all the way, there's no way I'm getting a 12th round in this magazine. Even if I could somehow get a 12th round in this magazine, it will not be able to properly seat. You can see here with 11 rounds in the gun, it will not want to properly seat with 12 rounds in here. You know, you always hear people talk about downloading AR mags from 30 to 28 so they seat on a closed bolt. My thing is that if this magazine is 12 rounds, if I use it to load the gun while the slide is to the rear, I can insert it, there's no resistance, cool. 12 round magazine there. If it's in the gun, I can't actually have 12 rounds in here plus the gun. So I can't have 12 plus 1 capacity. For me, it's going to be 11 plus 1 or 10 plus 1. So either 11 or 12 rounds total, not 11 rounds or 13 rounds. So I'm going to probably buy some more magazines once I can confirm reliable function for the pistol with these 2 magazines I currently have. And then we'll continue testing. So with that, that's kind of concluding what Smith & Wesson did to the gun. The turnaround time was rather quick from when they received it to when I got it back, but I was honestly concerned that they just weren't going to do anything to the pistol. The fact that they did this is great. I shouldn't have had to send the gun back in so quickly, but it is what it is. So, yeah. Now, I want to address a couple of things from the previous video because, you know, truth be told, that previous Bodyguard video got a ton of views for my small channel, and I'm thankful. Everyone who watched, whether you liked the video or hated it or were somewhere in between, I appreciate you for watching the video. I wanted to go over a couple of the things that I saw come up in the comment section, so let's go into that. I've had people say that I must hate Smith & Wesson because I was so negative about this gun. To the contrary, I'm actually a big fan of Smith & Wesson, and it kind of just pains me to see how poorly their quality control has been over the last 30 years or so. I have a list here, my little notepad list here, of guns I own from Smith & Wesson at this very moment. So let's go through it. I own a Model 19, I own a second Model 19, I have a Model 15, I have a Model 36, I have a 686, I have a Model 60, I have a Model 442, I have a Model 43C, I have a Model 351C, I own one of the full-size M&P 22 semi-automatic pistols, I have a Generation 1 Shield 1.0 9mm, I have a Generation 2 Shield 45 that I didn't buy it, but I kind of accumulated it, so there's that, and then I have this Bodyguard 2.0. Those are just the Smith & Wesson guns I own right now. That is 13 guns. And to put it into perspective, that's more than half my gun collection. So I own more Smith & Wessons than anything else. I don't hate the brand. I'm just disappointed with their current quality control. I write for a gun website, which is a thing I've done since 2018, and I'm not a paid shill. I am not someone who takes money from companies for positive reviews. I don't get paid to do negative reviews like a hit piece thing. Any sort of testing that you see me do is objectively done by me. This gun was purchased by me. The ammo that I've tested in the gun was purchased by me. One of the things is that if I speak positively about a gun, it's because I tested it and found it to work reliably, to work fairly accurately, and then if it's a carry gun, it's a gun that carries pretty well. This is one of those guns that, if it had worked out of box perfectly for me, I probably wouldn't have had any gripes for it. But the fact that I had issues like the feed ramp, the rear sight not being able to be moved, still have issues with the magazine not being able to be loaded to 12-round capacity, this gun would basically be the best 380 on the market. I'm testing a Glock 42 right now, which shoots nicer than this does, but it's the same size, or actually a little bit bigger, holds half as many rounds. I'm testing an LCP Max, which is a small gun, comparable size, comparable capacity, but this shoots a whole lot better, but that gun was more reliable. And again, this goes back into data and information. I am not paid by any companies to do negative or positive reviews. I am just here to give as much objectivity as I can. Obviously, at the end of the day, my opinion is a subjective one, but when I'm uploading footage of me shooting these guns and doing that testing, that is objective testing. I'm not trying to load the data to make things look better or worse for any gun, right? So it's just a shame that my experience with the Bodyguard 2.0 has been a rough one. I've spoken to a couple of friends of mine, a couple that work in the industry, and I've got a good buddy who people on YouTube might know. His name is Hop. If you're familiar with my channel, you probably know who Hop is. And Hop, if you're watching the video, thank you for watching. We talked about it over dinner a couple months ago, that it's a shame that Smith & Wesson kind of botched the release of this pistol, because this pistol should be the greatest gun of the year. And I see it winning these accolades from magazines that are effectively just thinly veiled advertising. This is a great gun if you got one that worked well. But if you were one of the people like me who got one that didn't work out of box, or like many of the commenters in the previous video that had ones that your front sight broke off, or you couldn't get it back together, or the gun did not shoot to point of impact or point of aim like most of them didn't, this was something that was not going to live up to that hype, right? Now again, I'm on my soapbox, so I apologize for that. But this is a gun that I really, really want to like. I test pocket guns, I carry small guns for appendix and pocket use for that kind of stuff. This should be a knockout of the park, but this is one of the various things that Smith & Wesson screwed up this year. And just to talk on that, the ultimate carry guns, those ones that are really cool, the new J-frames designed by Daryl Bolke and American Fighting Handgun, I have seen so many issues with those guns. And I know that they've made people like Daryl unhappy because that was a project that was a limited edition, Lipsy's thing, that had problems. And that's just a pain because if I didn't like Smith & Wesson, I wouldn't be ranting and raving about this. It's the fact that there's a company that has so much potential, but they keep botching the quality control. So it's just a shame that it happens, but it is what it is. So I've gotten the gun back. It certainly looks like they've done good work to it, but I have to go out and verify that that's actually going to, play a part in the reliability for the pistol. So I should have some shooting footage for this gun up next week. I will make sure it's nicely cleaned and lubricated before I take it out, because again, we're giving the gun a fair shake. It's not about making it look bad. I gain nothing from having negative views on a gun that I should like. So we'll see how it does. If you made it this far into the video, we're going to have a little Smith & Wesson Easter egg. Comment Highway Patrolman down below, and if you know what model of gun that was, leave that comment down below too. So thank you for watching, and have a wonderful day.